Hello and welcome back to the Galway Film Fleadh and to tonight's screening of Rialto. My name is Will Fitzgerald, programmer here at the Film Fleadh, and it's my pleasure to present this film as part of this year's lineup. First off, I want to apologise for everyone who has kept waiting with our tech issue in the streaming of Rialto. I know some people thought it was an interesting artistic choice there for a while to have the film play with no dialogue, but alas, it was just a computer glitch. And I think you'll all agree it was worth the wait to get to the end of a terrific film. I'm joined now by the director, Peter Mackie Burns, as well as screenwriter, Mark O'Halloran, and star Tom Vaughan Lawlor. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi.
Hi.
I appreciate you staying up late. I would normally at this point I'd have the social media questions coming in, asking questions, but I think people are still getting caught up with the film, so I'm just going to lead with some of my own. Peter, I don't know if you remember the last time you were here in Galway. We played a fun game that you seemed to make up on the spur of the moment with the audience called Existential Bingo, where we were trying to figure out what it was exactly that Daphne was suffering from in your first film, and we just kept calling out, mental health maladies among the audience.
Okay. That was a while. That was 2 years ago, was it?
That was that was probably 2 or even 3 years ago, maybe. Yeah.
Wow.
That was when we still had the Cinemobile, that great cinema on wheels.
Yes.
That we got to show your wonderful film in. But it strikes me that this is here again, a character study of a character who's feeling, less than whole, and probably themselves can't articulate, what it is that they're feeling. Is this a thematic sort of resonance in these scripts for you, or what attracted you to this project?
Oh, the writing. The script itself attracted me. The quality of the writing was smashing. The character was really interesting, and I suppose when you read something that has a whiff of life around it, for me personally speaking, that's something that attracts me very much to the script.
Yeah. And just on that, Mark, I mean, adapting your own work, this is obviously I know it was commissioned as your stage play originally, Trade. What's it like adapting your own work? Because I know a lot of writers who just kind of are sick of looking at the damn thing by the time they get finished with it, and here you picked up something and breathed new life into it.
Yeah, well, there was a bit of time between the play and the screen adaptation. It was difficult. There's a different type of language that you use in theatre than you would use in film, and then also the play was a shorter play. It was only about 50 minutes long, and so this had to be extended. And the play was set only in one room, so this was obviously set in a whole environment. So there was that. I mean, there was things like you find. I can hear my cat digging in her litter tray. But, she has proper respect for my work. But you find that I found that the ending it seemed to be different in the film than things that might work on stage didn't work on film. So you just had to, but it's just part of the work.
Yeah. Can you tell us as well about shifting the focus a little bit? Because if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the focus of Trade, the sex worker was sort of the main character, and here we kind of switch focus to someone who's
No, but they were both in the one room, and actually the man had more lines than the young man in the play as well. And when I suggested that I adapted, it was always going to be the man's story and not the boy's story. I was interested in his moral failures as being the stuff that I wanted to investigate.
Yeah. Moral failures, Tom. Is that what you liked about the script?
Speaking of moral failures, tell us about your career, Tom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's funny. The first time I heard about it was at the Galway Film Festival, because when we were there with Maze, Daphne was there, and I just worked with Peter on Daphne that the year before, and so I met him at the festival, and he said, I might be doing this new Mark O'Halloran film, and I might contact you about it. And I said, if it's a day, I'll do it because of Peter and Mark. And I was like, I was dead serious. Like, if it's a couple of scenes, I'll do it. And so when I was sent it with that it was this lead part, I was kind of, and then you read it, and then I was like, wow, this is really special. So yeah, it was something you just jump at straight away and work hard at.
Yeah. And obviously, I know you guys had been. I knew about obviously from having seen Daphne that you and Peter had worked together before. Mark and Peter, how did you come to Peter? I suppose how did you come to be attached to the script, or Mark, did you bring it to Peter?
No, I didn't bring it to Peter, but it was being produced through Alan Marr was producing it here, and our co-producers in London were the Bureau with Tristan Gallagher, and Tristan had produced Daphne, so that was the connection. So it seemed like a natural fit. They wanted to continue their relationship with Peter, and I wanted to continue my relationship with the Bureau, so it made sense that we were put together.
Tom, you touched on, you were kind enough to record a nice video for us ahead of the screening where you talked about how it's a film about grief and it's a film about fathers and sons. And, you know, that looming grief over, you know, the death of Colm's father kind of looms large in it. And I wonder how much you talked about that maybe with Peter in terms of, you know, the motivation for everything that happens to Colm in the script.
Yeah, I think we spoke. Mark and Peter and I met in London for a few days to go through it, and he's this huge shadow over the film and a huge shadow over this man's life. And I suppose now that he's dead, it's unclogged something in his life, and he's unmoored from a defining personality in his life, a defining presence. And so unmoored from that, he's kind of not sure who he is, I suppose, because he's always defined himself in relation to this person. And now that he is gone and he is grieving, it's bringing up all this stuff about his own identity and who he is and what he is and who he still hopes he could be, or just in terms of this thing of wanting to be a good person and what is a good person. And the script is so rich and there's such ambiguity and nuance in it that it just leaves all this room for the actor to kind of to sink himself into and to explore that ambiguity and the scenes were just a joy to play, always a joy. And Peter had you know, we never, all the big scenes, the big domestic scenes, the big scenes with Jay were always given a huge amount of time, like days, like full days. They were never rushed. They always knew how important those scenes were. They couldn't be rushed, and so we had great time to do it in, and that we were just so lucky to have that space and that care.
Yeah. I think the pacing of it and the space, like you mentioned, you know, really it led to that sense of atmosphere, and of course into that sort of void that you talk about, and you watch the character of Jay, and it strikes me, Mark, that, you know, films like this tend to often find a place in sort of like LGBT sidebars and film festivals and you know, festivals that have that as a focus, but it strikes me that it's actually not about that at all. I mean, you know, Colm's the beginning of his relationship with Jay almost seems to happen on a whim.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see this as an LGBT film. That's not to you know, and I don't think that LGBT community would really love this as being the centerpiece of their festival either. I think that LGBT festivals sometimes are looking for something a little different. This is about a film about a man's moral dilemma. It's outside of sexuality. Sexuality is not important to it, I don't think. It's the catalyst that brings him together with this boy and that throws up large moral questions at him. But you know, the two main characters in it don't define themselves as being homosexual. You know, they're outside of that. They do
And
have
at the
sex
same
scenes.
time, though, I thought it was when watching the early scene between Colm and Jay in the car. I think it's a first for Irish cinema to see come on someone's belly, and I'm like, whoa, are we maturing as a nation, or perhaps that was your influence, Peter?
It's in the script. I demand it.
Well,
Ejaculate.
it's, as Mark says, it's in the script.
I'm interested in the fact that, like, for instance, if we had made this film 15 years ago, it would have been absolutely outrageous. It's not outrageous anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
looked as being complex rather than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, the world's moved
And
on.
actually,
a bit.
the vision of somebody ejaculating or the sex that they do have, it's not done for the sake of, we're not going to put this in a film, it's going to be so hilarious. It's being done because it's part of the story, you know?
Yeah.
Although seeing Tom Vaughan Lawlor in bed with a young red boy is something that I've been working towards my entire career.
It's
hello.
my cat. Hello.
This is Delia. She's quite famous on social media now.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah.
And now it's part of the online film flaw. It's really interesting to hear, Tom, that you talked about Peter's process for those scenes, and how they were, the space that they were given and rightly deserved. Like the series of deep cuts that the film presents is so effective. Like in particular, thinking of when the sort of almost dismissive look that Jay gives Colm when he's kind of bearing his soul to him, or even that truly devastating scene at the end where Colm tells his son, that he loves a 19-year-old rent boy, even more than him. It's got to take you got to go to some dark places, I think, to plumb that kind of, raw intensity on screen.
Yeah, I mean, I again, I think not. You need to have the material and you need to have the director, and that sounds like I'm just saying that because Peter Mark here, but you need the material, and you need care and space and time, and it's frustrating. And I think because you have this huge responsibility because you're in every scene, nearly every frame. It's a huge responsibility, and I suppose you just do your research and you do your homework and you work as hard as you can to give yourself the best shot on the day to getting as close to the hidden truth as you can, I suppose. And there were days that were frustrating and days that were less frustrating and things you wish you had another shot at. But that's art, isn't it? That's filmmaking, that's acting. You give what you can and you move on. And Peter would say, if I needed to go again, I'd ask, and he'd always say, yeah, try it again or whatever. But it was always a case of, we won't move on until we have what we need. So I was always given those assurances by Peter, which was really reassuring, and a safe and supportive set always, which was really, was a wonderful thing to have.
Yeah. Peter, maybe you could tell us about working with Valentin. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Valentin, and the score, which I think really nicely balances the sort of grand strings, balance out almost kind of how modest the drama really is. The subtle flavor of it.
I was interested in trying to find a composer, and Valentin Hajjaj did the music for a movie called Girl a couple of years ago. Interesting film. And I went to visit him over in Paris, and I'm not very knowledgeable about music, but I knew that I wanted to have a modern classical score, and I wanted the score to reflect the turmoil that the character is in. So I wanted the music, in a sense, to do two things: to create a sense of tension that mirrored the character's inner world, or some of the tension that he was feeling. And there's not terribly many cues in the film, but I have to say I think the score is very good. I was really impressed with working with Valentin on it, and I hope audiences like it. I know that the score's not everyone's cup of tea, but I like that the contrast of an orchestrated score against, say, something that looks a bit more like social realism in a sense. So I suppose those were the starting points for the score. But he's a very talented composer. He's really, really excellent.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I mean, I think the juxtaposition worked brilliantly. And just as a more general question, what was it like shooting in Dublin?
That was great fun. It was really warm. I was surprised.
I don't believe you.
I think that was the warmest summer you'd had for a while, wasn't it? That year. What was it? Summer. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. It was great fun. You know, some of the locations. I think a pub we used was an Adam and Paul. Is that right? What's the name of that pub? Can you remember?
The Dockers, is it?
Yeah, the one that's near Croke Park. It's got a great picture of Brendan Breen.
Oh, Gales. In it. Yes, we did. We filmed in the back room in Gales, all right, yeah.
Yeah, we filmed in two rooms in it to make it feel like two pubs. But it was. We tried to shoot in sequence as much as we can. So going around Dublin and not coming from the city, it was great for me, perhaps to try to imagine where these characters would live and how they go about their lives. And everyone in the set was hugely helpful in terms of suggestions about places when we were scouting. So it was a joy. I have to say, it was a real joy to shoot in Dublin.
That's great. The pubs bit sounds particularly nice. I remember them when we could go to them once upon a time. That was they were fun. Maybe just actually by way of wrapping it up, if I could ask about, you know, I know we're all slightly sick of it, but now that we're starting to ease out of the pandemic, you know, this was obviously a film about one man's kind of restlessness, you know, his personal restlessness in his life, and we've all been sort of doing a lot of introspection while, you know, lockdown. Over the past couple of months. I mean, have any of you found it useful at all in terms of creative projects or feeding into anything?
I finished 6 scripts in lockdown.
Whoa! That's a resounding yes.
I had nothing else to do. I live alone. I only just got the cat like 3 weeks ago. It was only because I was going absolutely mad on my own. And I had a few commissions, and so I lashed into things. I've even started doing like, I think I'll do something for myself now, write something that I like myself. So I found it very creative. I had no other choice.
6 scripts and a cat. That's an amazing result by any standards. Well done. Tom, any do you know when you get to go back on a set? Is that any time in the near future?
I'm due to go back in September to complete a TV job. Whether or not that will happen, I don't know. But I know there are plans afoot to try and make it happen and to finish. And it's a great show, and I hope we can. But I mean, we just got to try and be patient, I suppose. My creativity is around trying to homeschool my son, which is like. Which is like, you know, just bribery and shouting and, you know, just appalling stuff. So, you know.
That's exactly how I write scripts as well.
Yeah. Got to bribe the cat to use the litter box, right?
We share a litter box. We're like that. Did I step over some sort of a line?
No. I think that about sums us up. Tonight, does it?
No lockdown tales from Glasgow, Peter?
I really don't like people very much, so it's I had a great time. I don't go to pubs or restaurants or like to be physically intimate with anyone. Big interest in masks. It's not much change for me.
The last time I was in a bar was in Glasgow for the Glasgow Film Festival with this film.
Oh, that's right. Me too.
Yeah, it was with you.
Yeah, it's the last time I was in a bar. Yeah, we were on our own.
That explains it. I think it was the last time for me as well, but I must have been in a different bar. In any case, thank you guys so much for joining us this evening and for sharing your thoughts about this wonderful film. Congratulations again on this brilliant character study. I hope it finds all the success when cinemas reopen and people get to go watch the bright wall in the dark room again. And thanks for joining the online Galway Film Fleadh. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.